Mikey Williams just turned 22. How he lives now is sad. Now, Mikey Williams, unlike the Julian Newman video that we just watched, this guy actually had a shot at making it to the NBA. Like, he genuinely had real NBA potential, but he fumbled it. And, bro, some of the crash outs that I saw this guy do over his NBA multi-million-dollar career, it's literally so unfathomable. So let's get right into the video and see what it's talking about, and kind of see how he's coping with this situation. He might be getting to some money now still, because I do think like college players were able to get paid now, but I don't know. Let's see what's talking about. Where you at, family?
Where you at, Berto?
So look, Mikey Williams' potential in the NBA is, I think, done. I think it's done. I don't think we're going to be seeing Mikey Williams in the NBA.
Mikey Williams has now turned 22 years old, and the way he lives now is sad. There is no other word for it. Not long ago, he was the most talked about teenage basketball player in the entire country. Every major outlet was covering him. NBA superstars were posting about him. Corporations were writing him checks before he ever played a college game. Yeah. The world had already decided
so
he was
had gotten some money. That much I know for sure. He definitely had touched some real chicken.
Be a star. But somewhere between that moment and right now, everything changed. Off-court troubles derailed his path. His career stalled in ways nobody saw coming, and the future that once looked inevitable suddenly became uncertain. The story behind how it all fell apart is more complicated than most people know. Stay with us until the end, because this one is worth understanding fully. To understand what Mikey Williams is right now, you have to go back to where this all started. Before he turned 18, before he played a single college basketball game, before any of the legal headlines, Mikey Williams had already become one of the most recognized young basketball players in the entire country. That is not an exaggeration. That is just the reality of what this kid was. Growing up in San Diego, California, Williams possessed a combination of raw athleticism, explosive leaping ability, and an instinctive scoring touch that made scouts and coaches stop everything they were doing and pay attention. He was putting up numbers in high school that seemed almost unreal. As a freshman at San Ysidro High School, Williams averaged nearly 30 points a game and at one point dropped 7
against real competition. Unlike the last video we just watched, Julian Newman, he was playing against the fifth graders and shit. My nigga was scoring 30 against niggas that played for special schools. Sorry, I had to send that shot there. But it's true. This nigga was actually doing this against high-level comp.
7 points in a single contest, breaking the school's single-game scoring record before he had even started shaving regularly. 77 points in high school. Let that sink in for a moment. But what truly separated Mikey Williams from every other talented teenager in America was not just what he could do on the court, it was what he was building off of it. At a time when social media was beginning to transform how young athletes were discovered and marketed, Williams arrived at exactly the right moment with exactly the right skill set and exactly the right personality for the digital age. His dunks went viral. His mixtapes circulated across YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter with the kind of organic momentum that marketing agencies spend millions trying to manufacture artificially. LeBron James himself praised the kid. NBA stars were posting about him, sharing his clips, and essentially validating to the entire basketball world that this teenager from San Diego was the real deal. Before he even played his junior year of high school, Mikey Williams had amassed millions of followers across his social media.
Didn't he get a Nike deal? Wasn't he like the first player to get a Nike deal without being a professional? Don't quote me on that. I'm just like trying to remember if I'm remembering correctly or not.
Media platforms. More than 3 million people on Instagram alone. He was not just a basketball prospect. He was a cultural phenomenon. He was a brand. He was a story that America had already decided it wanted to follow all the way to the NBA. And that kind of attention brought the kind of financial opportunity that most professional athletes do not see until after they have already been drafted. When Williams was a junior in high school, he made history in a way that nobody had ever done before in American sports. He became the first American high school basketball player to sign a major footwear endorsement deal.
See, I know I wasn't tripping. Was it Nike though?
Inking an agreement with Puma that made national news and sent shockwaves through the sports business world. Think about what that moment represented. A teenager still in high school, not yet.
See, now this is the thing though. I know I'm pausing a lot, but I'm just thinking to myself, I get millions of dollars in high school. This be the problem. Like I'm happy that my young niggas are able to get money now, but like, bro, you know what that does to a young nigga's mind? You got all the motion, you the top prospect, and you getting money now. The being broke at least kept you hungry. Like, you know what? Nah, I gotta make it. You know what I mean? That type of make you kind of like, maybe I shouldn't go to this party. Maybe I shouldn't go hang out with them niggas that I know be getting me in trouble. But now you give me money? Oh man, I can do whatever the fuck I want. I'm invincible in this hoe. At least that's kind of what I'd probably be thinking at young 16, 17, multi-millions.
He had committed to a college program, had convinced one of the largest athletic brands on the planet that he was worth investing in before he had played a single minute of college or professional basketball. That does not happen unless the people writing the checks believe with total confidence that this player is going to become one of the faces of the sport for the next decade. Puma was not making a gamble. They were making what appeared at the time to be an obvious business decision. Mikey Williams was going to be a star, and they wanted to be attached to that star from the very beginning. The expectations that followed were extraordinary. As Williams entered his final years of high school and began navigating the recruiting process, he was not being recruited as just another talented prospect. He was being discussed as a future lottery pick, a potential franchise cornerstone, a player whose combination of talent, marketability, and cultural footprint could make him one of the most valuable young athletes in all of professional sports. Blue blood college programs came calling with the kind of aggressive recruitment reserved for once-in-a-generation prospects. Analysts on ESPN and CBS Sports were already projecting his trajectory. His Instagram numbers were growing faster than his already impressive statistics. The narrative around Mikey Williams was not a question of whether he would reach the NBA. The narrative was about how quickly it would happen and how dominant he would become once he got there. Nobody was writing cautionary tale articles. Nobody was raising red flags. The entire basketball world was simply waiting for the next chapter of what everyone assumed would be an inevitable success story. On November 5th, 2022, Williams made it official. He committed to play college basketball at the University of Memphis under head coach Penny Hardaway, himself a former NBA star and one of the most respected names in the sport. The commitment was another headline, another moment that validated the trajectory everyone had mapped out for this kid. Memphis had a history of producing NBA talent, and pairing Penny Hardaway's coaching pedigree with Mikey Williams' unique combination of skill and stardom seemed like a perfect match. The basketball world applauded the decision. People circled the date of his college debut on the calendar. Everything was moving exactly the way everyone expected. And then on April 13th, 2023, everything stopped. Word broke that Mikey Williams had been arrested in San Diego County following a shooting incident at his home.
I remember this. This was, damn.
The details that emerged were serious and immediately alarming. According to prosecutors, a car arrived at Williams' home carrying several individuals, and shots were fired at the vehicle. The arrests generated national headlines within hours. Every sports outlet in the country, every basketball analyst, every fan who had followed his rise with excitement was suddenly talking about something that had absolutely nothing to do with basketball. The story that had been building toward a triumphant college debut and an inevitable NBA future had taken a turn that nobody had anticipated and nobody quite knew how to process. One moment, Mikey Williams was one of the most celebrated teenage athletes in America. The next, he was facing criminal charges that carried the potential for a decades-long prison sentence. The legal case that unfolded was as serious as anything a young athlete in this country had ever faced at that stage of their life.
The reason I'm not saying too much is I remember the announcement. I even remember reacting, but I kind of forget what happened. Like, was he the shooter? Like, I forget.
Prosecutors filed 9 felony charges against Williams, including multiple counts of assault with a deadly weapon and charges related to firing into an occupied vehicle.
What?
9 felonies. For context, a single felony conviction in the state of California can permanently alter a person's life, eliminating employment opportunities, professional licenses, and in the world of professional sports, raising the kind of red flags that organizations simply cannot ignore. 9 of them stacked against a 20-year-old kid who had been, just weeks earlier, preparing for his college basketball debut, created a level of uncertainty that was almost impossible to overstate. The Puma deal The college commitment, the NBA projections, the millions of followers, none of it mattered anymore because all of it was suddenly secondary to the question of whether Mikey Williams would be spending the foreseeable future in a courtroom or in a prison cell. The University of Memphis responded the way any institution would when faced with that level of legal uncertainty. Williams enrolled at Memphis in the fall of 2023 and took online classes, but the basketball program did not allow him to practice or participate with the team while the criminal case remained unresolved. Months passed, his teammates were getting better, building chemistry, developing under Penny Hardaway's system while Williams was watching from the outside. The development that should have been happening was not happening. The college experience he had planned for, the basketball growth he needed, the exposure in front of NBA scouts that every young prospect depends on, all of it was on hold. For a player whose career depends on maintaining and building on momentum, standing still during what should have been a defining developmental period was a quietly devastating blow that did not get nearly enough attention in the coverage of his legal situation. The legal process finally reached a conclusion in November 2023 when Williams entered a plea agreement. He pleaded guilty to a single felony count.
Damn, he pleaded guilty? Oh, shit. Yeah, it's over with. It's over with.
Of making a criminal threat, which represented a dramatic reduction from the original 9 felony charges that prosecutors had filed. By accepting the...
See, now this is where I'm gonna get my yaps off, bro. This nigga's a dumbass, bro. I don't know what the situation is. I don't know if it was hoes. I don't know if it was family. I don't know if it was disrespect. I don't know what it is, but bro, I am projected to be a top draft pick in the NBA. I'm a top recruit. I'm making millions of dollars. I don't want to be around nobody or nothing that gonna make me think I need to crash out about shit. I don't give a fuck. I'm cutting everybody off. I'm switching up if that's what it is. If you fuck niggas are talking shit to me and I feel myself getting riled up, best believe you'll never see or hear from me again. Because I'm not pulling up and doing nothing. No, nigga. I'm not fumbling the bag. This is multi-generational wealth. What we talking about? Yo, some niggas, I was just having this conversation, bro. Some niggas, if I were to come up to y'all so fried in the brain, there's some people that's so fried in the brain, like even when it comes to like smoking weed and shit. I go up to you and be like, hey bro, if you don't do no magic inhalers for an entire year, I give you $1 million at the end. You could do anything you want. Goddamn it, you can walk in these streets naked. I don't care what the fuck you do. But don't hit no magic inhaler. And I give you $1 million at the end. Them niggas would flop, bro. No self-discipline. It's crazy. I'm tired of niggas. Tired of them.
Plea deal, he avoided the possibility of the kind of extended prison sentence that would have ended not just his basketball career, but fundamentally altered the entire course of his life. The court sentenced him to a year of summary probation. Eventually, as he complied with the terms of that agreement, the felony charge was reduced to a misdemeanor. No jail time. A path forward that, at least legally speaking, gave him the chance to return to basketball. But here's the part of this story that the headline writers moved past too quickly. The legal outcome, as favorable as it ultimately was, compared to what he could have faced, did not erase the damage that had already been done. Public perception.
It's one thing if you ain't do nothing, but you play guilty, bro. Them brands not dealing with that. They'll wait for the next star.
Has shifted permanently. The conversation around Mikey Williams was no longer about lottery picks and endorsement empires. It was about second chances and character concerns and whether the kid who once seemed destined for superstardom could even hold a roster spot at the college level. The momentum that takes years to build, the kind of momentum that Williams had accumulated through thousands of hours of work and millions of hours of media attention, had evaporated in the span of a few months. And in the high-speed world of modern basketball recruiting and scouting, that kind of lost time and lost momentum is extraordinarily difficult to recover. Puma ended its endorsement partnership with Williams following the controversy. The deal that had made history, the agreement that had positioned him as one of the most marketable young athletes in the country before he ever played a college game, was gone. Other sponsorship opportunities that might have materialized in a world where his trajectory remained uninterrupted simply never arrived. The business infrastructure that had been quietly assembling around the idea of Mikey Williams as a future superstar quietly disbanded. Companies that were once eager to attach themselves to his rising star were now calculating the reputational risk of being associated with a player whose name was primarily appearing in legal news coverage rather than basketball highlights. The financial consequences of that shift were enormous. We are talking about millions of dollars in projected earnings, opportunities that, once lost at that stage of a young athlete's career, almost never return in the same form. After the legal case resolved, Williams made the decision to leave Memphis entirely. The program had made clear through its actions and through the long delay in clarifying his status that his return to the basketball team was not a priority for the university. His attorney said as much publicly. Williams entered the transfer portal and committed to the University of Central Florida, adding a prayer emoji to his announcement and writing 4 simple words that captured everything. All I needed was a chance. It was a phrase that hit differently when you understood what the previous year had looked like for him. Here was a player who had once been pursued by every major program in the country, who had been celebrated by NBA superstars, who had signed a historic endorsement deal as a teenager, now simply asking for someone to let him play college basketball. UCF gave him that chance. But the 2024 to 2025 season at UCF was not the triumphant comeback that his supporters had hoped for. In 18 games with the Knights, Williams averaged just 5.1 points.
And there it is, bro. Because the thing is, bro, you sitting down, niggas are getting better, bro. They're hungry. They want your spot. It's just like that. You could be a prodigy your entire career. The moment you sit your ass down and everybody else is playing and they're getting with the program. And mind you, college basketball is a completely different game, even if you are at the highest level. You know what I'm saying? Because while you get to dribble and do all your moves and have fun in fucking high school, when you get to the college level, especially high major D1, you got to play within the system. Even if you're the best player on the team. It's not just give him the ball and go. You know, you might be the first option on the offense, but nigga, you got to play within that system. You got to run them plays. And so it makes a huge difference. It's a completely different game. High school basketball and college basketball is a completely different game. In the same way that going to the pro level is a completely different game. So it's like, bruh, I think no matter how skilled he is, he didn't get a chance to grow and build within that collegiate system. And shit, he fell behind. And the competition caught up. There's not much you can do, bro.
Points per game.
And he got the pressure of trying to prove himself. So I'm sure that even stiffened him up a little bit. I'm sure.
In 14 minutes of floor time per contest. Those numbers were not the production of a projected lottery pick. They were not the numbers that prompt NBA scouts to rearrange their schedules. For a player who had once averaged nearly 30 points a night in high school and had been ranked as the top prospect in the country during parts of his high school career, averaging 5 points in limited minutes at the college level was a sobering reminder of how much the interruption had cost him. The development gap, the lost seasons of competitive basketball, the disruption to his confidence, his rhythm, and his professional trajectory, all of it showed up in those statistics in ways that were painful to watch for anyone who remembered what this kid was supposed to become. The transfer portal became his destination once more. In April 2025, Williams committed to Sacramento State University, a program undergoing a dramatic transformation of its own under the newly appointed head coach Mike Bibby, the former Sacramento Kings star and NBA point guard, and with NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal serving as the program's general manager. It was a fascinating combination of circumstances. Sacramento State was rebuilding itself around big names and major personalities, and Mikey Williams fit that narrative. ESPN Shams Charania reported the move. It was news again, and for a moment it felt like the kind of fresh start that might actually work. And to be fair, Sacramento State gave Williams something UCF never quite did, a starting role and the opportunity to be the centerpiece of an offense. His 2025 to 2026 numbers reflected that change in role dramatically. At Sacramento State, Williams was putting up over 17 points and 4.5 assists per game, showing flashes of the talent that had once made the entire basketball world stop and take notice. There were individual performances, including a 34-point game against Idaho State, where the old Mikey Williams reappeared briefly and reminded everyone watching that the skill had never completely disappeared. The question was never whether he could score basketball. The question was always bigger and more complicated than that. because NBA scouts, as the reporting made clear, remained unconvinced. Draft analysts were direct in their assessments. Despite the improved statistics at the college level, the level of competition at Sacramento State is not the level that NBA decision makers use to evaluate prospects in the modern draft era. Averaging 17 points against Big Sky Conference competition is a very different thing than averaging 17 points against the ACC or the Big Ten or the SEC. The players Williams was dominating at Sacramento State were not the players he would be expected to compete against in the NBA. And when scouts looked at the bigger picture, they saw a player who had spent years bouncing between programs, who had demonstrated inconsistency at a higher level of competition, who carried the legal history that organizations with millions of dollars invested in roster decisions take very seriously, and who was now putting up numbers in a conference that did not typically produce NBA rotation players. The projection that multiple analysts shared was not encouraging.
This basketball shit is brutal, bro. I ain't gonna lie. I think basketball is probably one of the hardest to make it in, because even from a roster standpoint, when you think about the NFL, what they got, fucking 50 to 100 niggas per roster, bro? There's only so many teams in the NBA, and they only hold, 12 to 15? And if you in that bottom branch of the 15, like, you really just going back up and down between the G League and shit. The NBA's probably got to be the hardest lottery to win, bro.
The consensus among those who scout the draft professionally was that Williams was currently trending toward being undrafted, a conclusion that, when placed alongside the trajectory everyone once mapped out for him, is almost too stark to sit with comfortably. And then came another setback. During the 2025 to 2026 season at Sacramento State, Williams missed 10 games due to injury, including the final 8 games of the season. In a situation where every game matters enormously for his professional case, where every performance is another data point that scouts are watching, losing the back end of his season to injury added another obstacle to a journey that had already accumulated more obstacles than anyone could have predicted. The path that once ran straight and smooth toward the NBA had become something else entirely, something winding, uncertain, and marked by detours that nobody who watched him play in high school could have imagined. So why does all of this feel sad? That is a word that gets used a lot when people talk about Mikey Williams now. And it is worth understanding exactly what that word means in this context. The sadness is not simply about the legal situation, as serious as that was. The sadness is not simply about the statistics or the transfer portal or the endorsement deals that disappeared. The sadness comes from something deeper and more human. It comes from watching enormous potential, the kind of potential that appears genuinely once in a generation, get redirected by a series of decisions made when a person was still a teenager. It comes from understanding that the gap between who Mikey Williams appeared to be at 17 and who he has become at 22 is not the result of a lack of talent. Scouts who have watched him closely will tell you that the athleticism is still there. The burst, the court vision, the ability to get to the rim, none of that vanished. What happened was something that no basketball drill can teach and no coaching staff can install. What happened was the irreversible loss of time, momentum, development, and a singular window in a young player's career when everything is either accelerating toward a destination or quietly beginning to drift. There's also a broader lesson embedded in the Mikey Williams story that the basketball world has been reluctant to discuss openly. The ecosystem that elevated him to cultural superstardom before he finished high school, the social media machine, the viral highlights, the $1 million endorsement deals before a college debut, the national media attention, none of that infrastructure was designed with a teenager's long-term well-being in mind. It was designed to extract value from a remarkably talented young person at the exact moment when that talent was most marketable. What it did not account for was the pressure that level of attention places on someone still growing up, still making the kinds of mistakes that every young person makes.
That's why I be telling y'all don't, sometimes you need to appreciate where you are at. Like, a lot of y'all want y'all to have success overnight. You want to be rich, young. And again, the idea of it is cool, bro. But sometimes your mistakes happening in the dark where nobody can see them is a big blessing. Because when you get all that attention and all eyes are on you, you really don't got time to fuck up. You really don't got time to be growing pains in the spotlight. Like, no, bro, you need to be performing in the spotlight. And that's why, I know this example doesn't correlate or translate to every single career, but when you look at some of the most successful actors and we look at them and we're like, yo, Denzel Washington, even people like Michael B. Jordan, bro, they're like 30 plus, 40 plus. Some of the best actors have been acting their entire life just for them to get their first big role at 40 years old. And while, like, I know in this generation it's so easy to be paying attention to like young niggas getting money. It's like, bro, if you can get the money while you're young, cool. I'm not knocking that. But don't be so in a rush to get to the top, because sometimes you're not ready, bro. Sometimes you wouldn't even know what to do with it. You get all this money and motion, all this attention, but you ain't even get a chance to fuck up. And now, boom, you fucking up in front of everybody. Now nobody want to rock with you again. And you know what's worse? You know what's worse than never coming up? Is coming up and falling off and then trying to prove yourself again to the people that have already painted the picture of you. Like, even with this content shit, when you post that video and it says 0 views, 10 views, 100 views, y'all want to be looking at it like a negative thing, but it's not that big of a deal, because guess what? Nobody saw it, bro. Keep posting. You're good. So just, a little slightly off topic, but it's relevant, man. Enjoy the process. Fall in love with the process. Fall in love with the mistakes. Fall in love with the growing pains, because it really can make all the difference when it's finally your time. Because now you done sharpened your sword. You as hard as rock, because you done been through the bullshit. You know what to do. It's your time.
Still figuring out who they are and how to navigate a world that had decided before they were old enough to fully understand the stakes that they were going to be a superstar. That does not excuse the decisions that were made. The events of April 2023 had real consequences, and the people involved in that situation faced real harm. Accountability matters, but understanding why someone in that position might make poor decisions, understanding the environment that surrounded him and the pressure that had been building since middle school, understanding that the same ecosystem that celebrated his dunks and packaged his image for corporate partnerships did not necessarily prepare him for the weight of all of that attention, is part of telling this story honestly. Mikey Williams was never just a basketball player to the industry that built itself around him. He was a product. And when that product became complicated, the industry moved on quickly and efficiently. The human being left behind was 20 years old and facing 9 felony charges. That asymmetry deserves acknowledgement. What remains for him now is a question that only time will answer. He has eligibility remaining. He has a Sacramento State program behind him, with Mike Bibby coaching him directly. A man who spent a career as an elite point guard in the NBA and understands better than most what it takes to make that leap. He has shown in individual moments that the talent is real and that the ceiling has not completely disappeared. If he can stay healthy, stay focused, continue developing his decision making and his efficiency, and find a way to produce consistently at a level that makes NBA organizations look past the history and see the player, there is still a version of this story that has more chapters to write. But the honest assessment, the one that is supported by the evidence and the reporting and the draft projections and the statistics, is that the road to the NBA from where Mikey Williams stands right now is genuinely difficult. It is not impossible. Players have come back from harder situations. Basketball has a way of rewarding persistence and punishing premature conclusions, but the comfortable, inevitable path that everyone assumed he was walking is long gone. What exists now is something harder, longer, and far less certain. So here's where we stand. Mikey Williams grew up in San Diego and became one of the most celebrated high school basketball players in American history before he was old enough to vote. He made history as the first American high school player to sign a major sneaker endorsement deal.
This nigga just be repeating the same shit over and over again, bro.
Memphis under Penny Hardaway, carrying the expectations of an entire sport on his shoulders. Then came April 13, 2020.
Yeah, I think we get the fucking point, man. Love y'all, appreciate y'all. If y'all want to watch the rest of that, the link is in the description. But I genuinely feel like he's just saying the same thing over and over again. This is the same person that made the Julian Newman video, which was a great video. We enjoyed it, but we got the point. Love y'all, man. Y'all let me know what y'all think, man. I think this can be a very great lesson to apply to different parts of your life. It doesn't just have to be for sports, but enjoy the process, be smart, and don't throw shit away over bullshit, bro. Because sometimes when you destined for greatness, the devil really gonna try to creep his way in and get you to mess it up. Don't let him fall for it. I mean, don't fall for the bullshit. Love y'all. I'm gone. Where you at?